When injustice kills, the dead do not always stay silent. In a quiet village, a young woman was accused, condemned, and her life was cut short for a crime she never committed. Her mother's cries were ignored. The king's judgment was final, and the earth swallowed her blood, but not her soul. Years later, a mysterious woman entered the palace, beautiful, gentle, and loved by all. No one knew she carried a secret darker than the night. She had one mission: to make the guilty suffer, to destroy the throne, and to avenge her own death. What happened next shook the land to its core and proved that the spirit of the wronged will always seek justice. Once upon a time, in a quiet village, there lived a girl named Chiamaka. She was beautiful, respectful, and the only child of her mother. From a young age, many suitors admired her, and even while she was still in secondary school, they began to come, asking for her hand in marriage. But her mother always told them, "My daughter must first finish secondary school and go to the university before marriage." Despite this, the suitors would not give up. Every morning as Chiamaka walked to school, different men would stop her along the road, talking to her about marriage. Chiamaka, however, always responded politely. She would say with calm confidence, "I am sorry, I don't want to marry now. I want to go to the university, get a good job, and take care of my mother. When that time comes, I will be ready for marriage." Even the men who only asked to be her friends received the same kind and respectful reply. She never insulted anyone, no matter how persistent they were. She remained humble, obedient, and focused on her goals. Her mother was proud of her, not just for her beauty, but for her discipline, maturity, and the way she carried herself with grace and dignity. Most evenings after school, Chiamaka would sit with her mother under the mango tree in their compound. The breeze would whisper through the leaves as they sorted beans together. Those moments were precious, filled with quiet dreams and gentle laughter. One day, Chiamaka looked at her mother with teary eyes and said, "Mother, I can't wait to start making money and take care of you. You have suffered so much to raise me, especially after the death of father. You made sure I continued my education even when things were hard. Mother, you are my hero, and I promise to make you proud." Her mother smiled warmly, her face lined with the marks of years of sacrifice. She placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder and said, "My child, that has been my prayer for you. I want you to be successful so I can enjoy the fruit of my labor. You are all I have, and seeing you rise will be my greatest joy." Chiamaka held those words close to her heart. They became her motivation on the hard days, when the walk to school felt long, when books seemed too heavy, or when the world tried to distract her. Through it all, she stayed focused. She read her books late into the night by lantern light and helped her mother in the mornings before school. And though the suitors still came, more persistent than ever, Chiamaka never wavered. Her dream was bigger than marriage at the wrong time. It was about purpose, about lifting her mother, and about becoming everything they both hoped she would be. Meanwhile, the young girls in the village began to grow jealous of Chiamaka. It seemed that every day brought more suitors her way, men asking for marriage, men pleading for friendship, yet she turned them all down with calm grace. Even her closest friend, Chinello, began to let bitterness creep into her heart. "Are we not also girls in this village?" the girls would whisper to one another. "Why must it always be Chiamaka? Almost every man wants to marry her. Even those that are looking for girlfriends go straight to her, even when she keeps rejecting them." Chinello, Chiamaka's best friend. "She is my best friend," she would say, "but I hate her so much. The way she carries herself as if she's the most beautiful girl in the world. Sometimes I wonder, is she using something to attract these men? I am beginning to suspect her." Even the young men in the village began to grow irritated. Her constant rejections bruised their egos, and they began to speak of her with anger instead of admiration. One afternoon, as Chinelo walked down the path toward the market, she overheard a group of young men gathered beneath a tree, speaking in hushed, bitter tones. "That girl, Chiamaka, has insulted us all," one said. "She rejected every single one of us like we are nothing, always acting like she's better than everyone. She acts as if no man in this village is worthy of her love," another added. "How we wish we could teach her a lesson." Hearing this, Chinelo's heart stirred, not with concern, but with opportunity. She stepped toward them with a sly smile and said, "I know how we can teach her a lesson. Honestly, she has disrespected all of you. She walks around as if she's Queen Elizabeth herself." One of the young men narrowed his eyes. "So how do we do it?" Chinelo glanced around and whispered, "In this village, stealing is a great abomination, especially if you steal something that belongs to the king, right?" "Yes," they agreed in unison. "So," she continued, "let's make it look like Chiamaka has stolen something from the king." Another boy frowned. "That won't work. Chiamaka is too wise. She knows stealing is taboo in our land. She will never do it." But Chinelo only smiled, a cruel glint in her eye. "Leave that to me. I know how to get her to do it. She still trusts me as her best friend, and I know how to set the trap." The boys looked at each other, then at Chinelo. Slowly, they nodded. A wicked plan began to form in their hearts. That night, Chinelo couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, her mind racing with envy and dark excitement. At dawn, she rose early, stood before her mirror, and whispered to her reflection, "Today, Chiamaka will commit an abomination. Today she will be disgraced. The whole village will see her as a thief, and no man will ever want her again. Then maybe they will finally notice me." She smiled to herself, her eyes cold and calculating. She carried a basket and made her way to Chiamaka's house. She found her sweeping the compound, as usual, graceful and diligent. "Good morning, my beautiful friend," Chinelo greeted, with a sweet voice that masked her dark intentions. "Good morning, Chinelo," Chiamaka replied. "This one you came so early, I hope all is well." "All is well, my dear friend," Chinelo said. "Actually, I came to ask for your help with something." "What is it you need help with?" Chiamaka asked curiously. "My friend, who works as a maid in the king's palace, was sent to harvest maize from the king's farm," Chinelo explained. "But she's overwhelmed with other chores, so she begged me to help her. And now I am here to beg you to assist me. I can't do it alone." Chiamaka looked at her, concerned. "Wait, did you hear what you just said? Have you forgotten that no one enters the king's farm without his direct permission? That's a serious offense in this village." "I haven't forgotten," Chinelo said quickly, feigning confidence. "In fact, I just came from the palace. My friend informed the king, and he gave me permission that I should help her. So, you see, I have the king's blessing." Chiamaka sighed in relief. "Well, as long as the king agreed then, there's no problem. I will help you, but today is Saturday, and I still have some cleaning to do at home. You may have to wait a while." "No, my friend, please," Chinelo pleaded. "Let's go now. You can finish your cleaning later. This won't take long." Moved by her friend's insistence, Chiamaka agreed and followed her to the king's farm. As soon as they arrived, they began harvesting maize. But before long, Chinelo suddenly screamed, "Thief! Thief! You are stealing maize from the king's farm." Before Chiamaka could react, a group of young men sprang from the nearby bushes. It was a trap, just as they had planned with Chinelo. They grabbed Chiamaka roughly, shouting, "You are a thief! You have committed an abomination! We must take you to the king!" Shocked and confused, Chiamaka tried to speak. "Please, I am innocent. I was only helping my friend." But no one listened. The men dragged her to the king's palace, ignoring her pleas. At the palace, Chiamaka stood before the king, bruised and trembling. "Your Majesty," she cried, "I am innocent. It was Chinelo who asked me to help her harvest maize. She said the king had given permission. Please, I did not steal anything." But Chinelo stepped forward, cold and unbothered. "Your Majesty, she is lying against me. I, along with these other witnesses, caught her red-handed stealing from the king's farm." The king turned to the young men, who all nodded in agreement. "It is true," they chorused. "We saw her stealing with our own eyes." The king's face grew hard. "Young woman," he said gravely, "as beautiful as you are a thief. Do you know the punishment for stealing in this village, especially what belongs to the king? It is death. You shall be stoned to death at the village square. I have spoken, and so shall it be." Chiamaka broke down in bitter tears. "No, please, I am innocent. My mother has no one but me. Please, your Majesty, don't let them kill me." But her cries were ignored. Among the palace maids, one named Joy was deeply disturbed. Tears welled in her eyes. Why would the king pass such a heavy judgment without proper investigation? She murmured to herself. I can see the innocence in her eyes. Soon the villagers dragged Chiamaka to the village square. Word spread quickly, and a crowd gathered. When Chiamaka's mother heard the news, she ran with all the strength left in her aging legs. There, in the village square, she saw her only child, beaten and bruised, surrounded by angry villagers with stones in their hands. She fell to her knees and wailed, "Please, my daughter is innocent. I can swear with my life." But the palace guards only barked at her. "Woman, your daughter is a thief. She stole from the king's farm, and the king has spoken. Who are you to challenge the king's word?" As the first stone flew, Chiamaka screamed. Her mother cried until her voice was hoarse, and when her daughter's body finally slumped lifeless to the ground, she collapsed too, fainting in grief. Without pity or remorse, the villagers carried Chiamaka's body to the evil forest, where the condemned are thrown. Only one man stayed behind. A stranger from a neighboring village. He lifted Chiamaka's mother and took her back to her home. He waited by her side until she awoke. "Where am I? Where is my daughter?" she asked weakly. The young man looked at her with sorrow. "Please calm down," he said gently. "Your daughter's body has been taken to the evil forest. My name is Godwill. I am not from this village. I only came to visit a friend, and from what I witnessed, they killed a girl without any proof. This is injustice." But Chiamaka's mother couldn't hear him. Her world had shattered. Her mind slipped into grief beyond reach. She wept endlessly, her heart broken beyond repair. "Please, let me take you to my village. You can't remain here alone. I live with my younger brother and live with us. You won't be alone." But she didn't respond. Her spirit was buried with her daughter. After waiting a while, the young man stood and said softly, "I will go, but I will return from time to check on you." Then he walked away, his heart heavy with sorrow, for a girl whose only crime was purity, and a mother destroyed by betrayal. Meanwhile, Chinelo could no longer sleep in peace. Her heart was heavy with guilt, and her nights were haunted by nightmares of Chiamaka's bloodied face. "I never wanted her to die," she muttered to herself, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I only wanted to disgrace her. I only wanted the villagers to see her as a thief, not this, not death. Oh, my friend, I am so sorry. What have I done?" Her regret grew heavier each day, but it was too late. The deed had been done. The next morning, the young man from the neighboring village returned to check on Chiamaka's mother, but what he met broke his heart. The woman had fallen terribly ill. Weak and pale, she lay on the floor, barely able to sit up. Without hesitation, he rushed to the nearest chemist shop, bought medication, food, and clean water. He sat with her, cared for her gently, and tried his best to comfort her grief-stricken soul. 3 days passed since the villagers threw Chiamaka's body into the evil forest. Then, on the 4th day morning, something strange happened. Chiamaka's mother rose early, her body still weak, and stepped outside to get fresh air. But what she saw froze her in place. There, right in front of her doorstep, lay the body of her daughter. "My daughter's corpse! My daughter's corpse!" she screamed in disbelief, and collapsed in tears. Her cries pierced the morning air. Neighbors rushed out of their homes. When they arrived, they stood in shock. There was Chiamaka's body, not decayed, not defiled, but peacefully laid out as if sleeping. They looked at each other in horror and awe. "The forest has rejected her," one elder whispered. "Yes," another added solemnly. "She was innocent. The evil forest never keeps the body of the innocent. It has returned her to us because we killed the wrong person." Soon the news spread through the village. People gathered in silence, their hearts heavy with shame. Women wept openly. Men lowered their heads. The truth they had ignored was now undeniable. Chiamaka's mother fell to the ground and sobbed until her body could take no more. When the news reached the king, he sat in stunned silence for a long time. Then he stood, removed his crown, and swore before his guards and elders, never again will I pass judgment without proper investigation. We have shed innocent blood, and I will carry this guilt forever." That same day, the villagers buried Chiamaka in her father's compound, where her spirit could finally rest in peace. The land mourned. Songs of sorrow were sung. Even the trees seemed to bow in grief. The next day, the young man returned once again to check on Chiamaka's mother. But this time, the atmosphere had changed. He arrived just as the burial had ended and heard the full story. Upon learning that Chiamaka had been innocent all along, he sat beside her mother and wept. "I knew she was innocent," he said softly. "She was pure, too pure for this wicked world. And I promise you, Mama, I will not abandon you. As long as I live, you will never suffer alone." Chiamaka's mother looked into his eyes. Though her heart was still shattered, she saw truth and compassion in his eyes. She didn't speak, but a tear slid down her cheek, a silent thank you. When Chinelo heard that Chiamaka's corpse had been rejected by the forest because she was innocent, she broke down completely. Her heart could no longer carry the weight of what she had done. She wept bitterly in her room, holding her head in shame. "I am sorry, my dear friend," she cried. "Please forgive me. I never meant for it to end this way. I only wanted to embarrass you, not to kill you. I never imagined the king would pass such a harsh judgment." But her tears could not bring her friend back. Her guilt consumed her like fire. One quiet night, as Chiamaka's mother sat outside her compound, crying softly and talking to the wind as if it were her daughter, something strange happened. A cold breeze swept through the compound, and the air grew heavy. Then, slowly, the spirit of Chiamaka appeared, her eyes filled with tears, and her body glowing softly in the moonlight. She stood silently, watching her mother with pain in her heart. "I am sorry, mother," she whispered, though her mother could not hear her. "I never meant to break your heart. I only wanted to make you proud. I trusted the wrong person. I trusted my friend." Tears ran down the ghost's face. "I cannot rest. Not yet. Not until I fight for myself. Not until the truth is fully known and justice is done. And mother, I will not rest. Not until I put a smile back on your face." But her mother, though she felt a sudden coldness in the air, could neither see nor hear her daughter. She only clutched her chest and cried harder, unaware that her beloved Chiamaka stood beside her, whispering promises from beyond. That night a wind howled through the village, a warning of what was to come. For the spirit of Chiamaka had risen for vengeance. The next day, before dawn broke, Chiamaka's ghost rose from her grave. The wind grew cold, and the sky darkened briefly. Her spirit, now filled with sorrow and unfulfilled purpose, vanished into the morning mist. She reappeared in the middle of Chinelo's room. Chinelo was fast asleep when she felt a sudden chill. She opened her eyes, and there stood Chiamaka, pale and glowing, her eyes burning with quiet pain. "Why?" Chiamaka whispered, her voice like the wind. "Why did you betray me?" Before Chinelo could scream, her eyes rolled back and she fell to the ground, shaking violently. From that moment, madness seized her. She became mad. She ran out into the streets, barefoot, her hair disheveled, shouting uncontrollably. "I did it! I am the reason Chiamaka is dead," she screamed. "She was innocent. I was jealous. I planned it all. I told the young men what to do." She mentioned the names of all the young men. The villagers gathered, shocked and speechless, as they watched her cry and laugh at once, slapping herself and pulling her hair. "She was my best friend," she shouted, "but I envied her beauty. I hated how they loved her." The people were horrified. No one touched her. What punishment could they give someone, already cursed by the spirit of the girl they murdered? And then, one by one, the young men who conspired with Chinelo began to die. Some were found dead in their sleep, their eyes wide open in terror. Others were found dead along the village road, their bodies twisted unnaturally. Fear spread through the village. Chiamaka's spirit had not only revealed the truth, she had brought justice with her own hands. Now Chinelo roamed the village as a madwoman, muttering to herself in the market, pointing to shadows and screaming, "She is here! She is watching me!" The villagers lived in fear and sorrow. When Chiamaka's mother heard Chinelo's confessions, she wept bitterly in her compound, holding her daughter's clothes to her chest. The pain of losing an innocent child burned fresh in her heart. That night, Chiamaka appeared beside her mother once again, her ghostly form standing beside the weeping woman, and watched her silently. "Stop crying, mother," she whispered. "I have fought for myself. I made Chinelo mad. I killed the men who lied against me. But I still cannot rest, not until I see you smile again." But her mother, heartbroken and weak, could neither see nor hear her beloved daughter. The spirit of Chiamaka faded once more into the night. The village, now quiet and full of sorrow, began to speak her name not with shame, but with reverence. Chiamaka, the girl who was wrongly killed, the girl who fought back even in death. One hot afternoon, under the scorching sun, a strange stillness fell along the village road. Out of the quiet breeze, Chiamaka's ghost appeared once more. This time she was not the sorrowful spirit who watched from the shadows. Her eyes were fierce with purpose. She stood by the roadside and transformed herself into a radiant, elegant young woman, her features flawless, her beauty nearly unearthly. She called herself Sandra now. She had one more person to deal with, the king himself, the man who passed a death sentence on her without justice. She waited. Soon the prince drove past in his car. The moment he saw her, he stopped and stared, completely captivated by her beauty and poise. "Hello, beautiful lady," he said, lowering his window, unable to hide his admiration. "What is your name?" "My name is Sandra," she replied sweetly, her voice soft like honey but heavy with a hidden mission. "Wow, Sandra, you look so amazing," he said, smiling. "Please, come in. Let me give you a ride." She nodded gracefully and entered the car. As soon as she sat down, she turned to the prince, locked eyes with him, and released a subtle charm. His heart raced. The spell took hold. "Sandra, my love," he said, almost breathless, "please marry me. Just say yes, and I will take you straight to my father, the king. I never felt this way before." Chiamaka, disguised as Sandra, smiled and said, "Yes, I will marry you." The prince, thrilled and desperate to please her, turned the car around and drove straight to the palace. He rushed in to announce the good news. "Father, your Majesty, I have found the woman I want to marry. Her name is Sandra." The king, who had long been urging his son to settle down, stood up with excitement. "My son, this is wonderful news. I am happy for you. Let me see her." The moment Chiamaka stepped into the palace, the air shifted. The king looked into her eyes and felt something strange, but before he could ask further, she charmed him, as she did his son. His mind clouded, his questions faded. "Where do you come from, young lady? Who is your father?" he began to ask, but the charm wrapped around his mind like mist. He blinked slowly, then smiled. No need for all that. If my son loves you, then I accept you. I hereby pronounce you husband and wife." And just like that, the wedding was declared. The prince was overjoyed. The villagers were stunned by the suddenness, but they dared not question the king. But beneath the celebration, something darker stirred. Chiamaka had entered the heart of the palace, the very place where her life had been unjustly taken. And now, the worst was about to happen. The next day, as the golden sun climbed into the sky, Sandra, Chiamaka in disguise, sat in the palace courtyard with the prince. Her eyes sparkled with mischief, though her face remained soft and composed. "My dear husband," she said sweetly, "I want you to give me your ATM cards so I can withdraw money whenever I need." The prince did not think twice. With a broad smile, he pulled out 2 cards from his wallet and handed them over to Sandra. "Take them, my love. Use them any time, any day. Anything you want is yours." Sandra accepted the cards with a slow smile. "Thank you, my darling." That evening, after dinner, Sandra summoned one of the palace maids, Joy. She had been quietly watching her, remembering that day when she alone had cried for Chiamaka. "Joy, come here," she called. Joy rushed in, bowing. "Yes, Your Majesty, you called me." "Yes, I did," Sandra replied gently. "I heard a story about a young girl who was stoned to death in this village for a crime she did not commit, that the king himself passed judgment without proper investigation." Joy's face darkened at the memory. "Yes, Your Majesty, it's true. She was innocent. Her name was Chiamaka. Many of us couldn't believe it, that the king could pass such a harsh sentence without proper evidence." Sandra leaned in slightly. "And I also heard that you were the only maid who wept for her." Joy blinked, startled. "Your Majesty, how do you know that?" Sandra smiled faintly. "I am just guessing. Come with me to my room. There is something I want to tell you." Without hesitation, Joy followed her. Inside the royal chambers, the air grew quiet and heavy, with something unspoken. As they entered inside, Sandra said to Joy, "Now, tell me everything about yourself." "My name is Joy. I am an orphan. I lost my parents many years ago. I fled and came to this palace. The late queen took pity on me and gave me a job as a maid. I have been here ever since." Sandra nodded slowly. "I know all of this already. I only wanted to see if you would lie to me." Joy's eyes widened in disbelief. "How did you know?" Sandra looked at her calmly and said, "Never mind." Joy stared at her, confused and slightly afraid. Sandra sat gracefully on the edge of her bed, her eyes filled with a mysterious calm as she looked at Joy. "When I heard the story of Chiamaka," she said thoughtfully, "I felt deeply for her mother. She must be suffering terribly now." "I felt for her too," Joy replied, her voice tinged with sadness. "She must be going through so much pain." Sandra turned to her with a gentle smile. "But Joy, what if I ask you to go and live with her? Take her as your mother, since you have lost your own parents. Treat her with love, and help put a smile on her face again." Joy blinked, surprised. "You will no longer work here in the palace as a maid," Sandra continued. "You will leave with your belongings and stay with her. Don't worry about money. I will provide everything you need. Just be there for her. That will be enough." Joy's eyes welled up with emotion. "That's a good idea. I will go. But what will I tell the king? He may not allow me to leave the palace." "Don't worry about the king," Sandra replied softly but firmly. "Just go. I will be the one to speak with him." Joy nodded slowly. "Okay, Your Majesty. Tomorrow morning I will go to the woman's house." Sandra stood and placed a reassuring hand on Joy's shoulder. "You are doing something beautiful, Joy, and I promise everything will make sense soon." That night, as the palace slept under the hush of moonlight, a quiet wind swept through the corridors, carrying the scent of justice, vengeance, and a soul not yet at rest. The next morning, Sandra and Joy prepared quietly. With a small bundle of Joy's belongings, the 2 women set off toward Chiamaka's mother's house. When they arrived, they found the woman sitting quietly outside, her eyes sunken from grief. her hands clasped in silent sorrow. At the sight of the two young women approaching, especially Sandra, a strange cold chill ran down her spine. Something about the elegant young lady seemed familiar, too familiar. "Who are you both?" she asked, standing slowly with uncertainty in her voice. Sandra stepped forward with a soft, reassuring smile. "My name is Sandra. I am the prince's wife, and this is Joy, a palace maid. When I got married, the prince, I heard about what happened to your daughter, Chiamaka." The woman's eyes widened slightly, and her hands trembled at the mention of her daughter's name. "So," Sandra continued gently, "I decided to bring Joy to live with you, to help fill the gap your daughter left in your life. She's a good girl, and I know she will treat you like her own mother. And please don't worry about money. I will take care of both of you." Chiamaka's mother burst into tears, her body shaking as she fell to her knees. "Thank you, Your Majesty, thank you so much. May the gods bless you for this kindness." Sandra bent down and helped her up, embracing her softly. She then handed Joy a heavy envelope filled with money, and another for the woman. Joy gasped quietly at the amount, her eyes wide in disbelief. "Thank you so much, Your Majesty," she said. "I don't know what I did to deserve this." Sandra smiled at her. "You did what no one else did. You wept for Chiamaka. That is enough." She promised to return often, then quietly turned and left for the palace. As she walked away, the wind picked up again, soft, but heavy with purpose. Chiamaka's mother and Joy stood watching her disappear down the path, both feeling that something deeper had just taken place. The next morning, Chiamaka, still in her disguised form as Sandra, the prince's wife, made her way to the neighboring village where Godwill lived, the same young man who had once shown kindness to her grieving mother. When she arrived at his compound, she found him sitting outside with his younger brother, both of them engaged in casual conversation. As she approached, Godwill stood up, sensing the presence of a stranger. "Excuse me, Godwill," Sandra said gently. "Can I talk to you?" Godwill exchanged a quick glance with his brother, then stepped aside with the elegant young woman. "Who are you, and what do you want to talk to me about?" he asked, curiosity in his voice. "My name is Sandra," she began. "Do you remember the woman whose daughter was stoned to death unjustly by order of the king?" Godwill nodded solemnly. "Yes, I remember. I went to visit her not long ago. I took some food and medication to her." "That poor woman," Sandra nodded. "I came from that village. I am the prince's wife." Godwill's expression changed, his brows furrowed, and his voice turned sharp. "Wait a minute. Are you saying you are the daughter-in-law of the same king who condemned Chiamaka to death?" Sandra raised her hands calmly. "Please calm down, Godwill. I am not the king. I am only his son's wife. When I got married to the prince and heard the tragic story, my heart broke. I knew I had to do something." Godwill listened, still wary but willing to hear her out. "I have already helped the woman," Sandra continued. "A palace maid named Joy now lives with her and treats her like a mother. But there is more I want to do. That is why I am here." She looked Godwill in the eye. "I want you to go and meet Joy. Talk to her. Get to know her. If you both fall in love, marry her. If you do, I will support your union. I will build you a house, buy you a car, and give you all the resources you need. Live with the woman, treat her like your mother, make her smile again. In return, I will make sure you lack nothing." Godwill stood speechless for a moment, then finally said, "That's incredibly kind of you. Honestly, it's always been my desire to bring that woman into my home, but she refused. Still, I help her however I can." He paused and smiled faintly. "I will do as you said. By tomorrow morning I will go to the village and meet Joy." Sandra smiled warmly and turned to leave. "May your heart remain kind, Godwill." After she was gone, Godwill returned to his brother and told him everything. The young boy jumped with excitement. "Brother, God has remembered us today," he exclaimed. "I will wake you early tomorrow so you can go meet Joy." Godwill chuckled. Apart from her offer, I have always felt drawn to that woman's pain. I wanted to help her, truly. But I do hope Joy is beautiful. I have always dreamed of marrying a beautiful woman. His brother grinned. Then maybe your dreams are finally about to come true. The next morning, Godwill set out early for Chiamaka's mother's house. As he arrived, he saw a heartwarming sight. Chiamaka's mother sitting outside with Joy, both of them smiling. Joy was animatedly telling a story, and the older woman was laughing, a sound Godwill had never heard from her before. In the past, he had always met her weary and sick, but today she looked stronger, her eyes filled with light. As Godwill approached, she looked up and smiled warmly. "You are welcome, my son. Please sit down," she said, gesturing to a nearby bench. Godwill sat down, returning her smile. She turned to him with pride in her voice, introduced Joy. "Meet Joy, my daughter. The prince's wife brought her to me to keep me company and fill the vacuum in my heart. And since then, she's been a true blessing to me." Godwill nodded. "Yes, the prince's wife came to me too, and told me about Joy. Now I have seen her with my own eyes." Chiamaka's mother furrowed her brows thoughtfully. "But wait," she said, turning to Godwill. "How did she know about you? And who gave her directions to your house?" Godwill paused, realizing he hadn't thought of that. "Honestly, I don't know, and I did not remember to ask her." They sat in silence for a moment, all of them reflecting on the mystery. Then Godwill turned to Joy, his voice soft. "Thank you, Joy, for taking such good care of her. You are truly a good girl." Joy smiled gently. "You don't need to thank me. She's my mother already." Their eyes met, and in that brief exchange, something deeper stirred between them, a quiet understanding, a spark neither could ignore. Chiamaka's mother observed the moment with a knowing smile. Perhaps fate was slowly rewriting a new story, one of healing, love, and redemption. Just like that, Godwill and Joy became close friends. They laughed together, shared stories, and worked side by side to make Chiamaka's mother smile again. The old woman's home, once filled with sorrow, now echoed with laughter and warmth. One peaceful afternoon, as the three of them sat outside, enjoying the breeze and sharing jokes, Godwill suddenly turned to Joy. His tone softened, and his eyes held something deeper than usual. "Joy," he said gently, "will you marry me?" Joy froze for a moment, her eyes wide. Chiamaka's mother gasped in surprise, her hand rising to her chest. Then, slowly, a wide smile spread across Joy's face. "Yes," she said with a laugh, "I will marry you." Godwill pulled her into a warm embrace, and Chiamaka's mother clapped her hands joyfully. "God has remembered me," she cried. "After all my pain, he has remembered me." Back in the palace, Sandra, the disguised Chiamaka, stood at the window of her royal chamber, gazing far into the distance. Though she could not be seen, she had been there in spirit, watching her mother's transformation. When she felt the genuine happiness in her mother's heart, a gentle smile crossed her lips. "I promised you, mother," she whispered to the wind, "I would not rest until I put a smile on your face." The next day, Sandra came to visit Joy and Chiamaka's mother. Joy ran out excitedly to welcome her. "Your Majesty," she exclaimed, "you won't believe it. God will propose to me." And I said yes. Chiamaka's mother also smiled warmly. "Yes, my dear, they are getting married. Thank you for bringing joy into our lives again." Sandra was overwhelmed with happiness. Her heart swelled at the sight of her mother's peaceful face and Joy's radiant smile. "I want the wedding to take place in 2 weeks," Sandra announced. "Don't worry about anything, I will sponsor everything. Tell Godwill to start informing his friends now. It will be a wedding to remember." They were all stunned and thrilled that the prince's wife would personally sponsor the wedding. Just like a dream, 2 weeks later, the wedding took place. It was a beautiful celebration, filled with laughter, music, and dancing. The entire village came to witness the union, and for the first time in a long while, Chiamaka's mother danced with joy. Sandra kept her promises. She built a beautiful house for Godwill and Joy, and even bought them a new car. The couple moved in with Chiamaka's mother, who now lived like a queen, surrounded by love and care. Sandra opened a business for Godwill. She opened a business for Joy, and they took very good care of Chiamaka's mother. One evening, as Sandra stood alone beneath the moonlight, "I have done what I came for," she said quietly. "My mother smiles again. Joy has found love. Justice has begun. Now it is time to make the king feel the pain that I felt, so that, in his next life, he will never support or practice injustice again." A chilling wind swept through the air. The final chapter of Sandra's mission was about to begin. That evening, the king sat on his throne, feeling unusually restless. Sandra entered the palace hall, her presence commanding, her eyes glowing faintly with supernatural power. "Your Majesty," she said in a calm but firm voice, "rise from your throne and follow me." Without a word, and as though under a strange enchantment, the king stood and followed her. They walked silently to the prince's chamber. Once inside, Sandra sat at the edge of the bed and looked straight into the king's eyes. "Now," she said, "touch me, as if I am not your son's wife. Let the world see what kind of king you are." The king's hands trembled. He began to move, confused and overtaken by her spell. But just then, Sandra let out a loud, piercing cry. "Help! Please, your Majesty, no! I am your daughter-in-law. What you are doing is a great abomination. Stop it!" Her voice echoed through the palace. Guards, servants, and the prince himself stormed into the room. What they saw left them horrified. The prince gasped, "Father, what are you doing? This is your son's wife." The king looked around, dazed, realizing too late what he had been led to do. Shame consumed him as the room filled with shocked silence. Word spread quickly through the village. "The king has committed an abomination. In their land, attempting to take another man's wife, especially your son's wife, is not only a moral crime but a sacred taboo. The penalty was death." The villagers gathered in the palace, their faces marked with anger and disappointment. Murmurs of outrage rippled through the crowd. "The king must be stoned to death for this abomination. He has defiled the throne and polluted our land," someone shouted. An elder stepped forward, raising his hand for silence. "From the beginning of our kingdom's history, no king has ever committed such a disgrace. For defiling our sacred traditions, he must face judgment." Without delay, the villagers seized the king. He pleaded desperately, his voice trembling. "It was not intentional. I was under a spell. I didn't know what I was doing." But no one listened to him. Just as Chiamaka had been condemned, the villagers stoned the king in the village square. His cries echoed, but justice in their eyes had to be served. When it was over, his body was dragged and thrown into the evil forest, the same fate that befell the innocent girl. 4 days later, something strange happened. Early that morning, the king's lifeless body was found, lying in the palace courtyard, untouched by decay. The forest had rejected him. This was a terrible sign. The prince was shaken, confused. He turned to Sandra with fire in his eyes. "My father's body was rejected by the forest. That means he was innocent. Sandra, is there something you are not telling me?" His voice dropped. "Who are you?" "I am not Sandra. I am a ghost, an angry spirit who came for justice and vengeance. I am Chiamaka, the girl your father sentenced to death." The prince stumbled backward, his hands trembling. "I never loved you," she continued. "You were only a tool, a door into the palace. I came for revenge. Now that your father is dead, bury him, the way my mother buried me." With that, her form dissolved into shadows and vanished. The prince fell to his knees, his world crumbling. He had shared his home, his heart, with a ghost. Later that day, he and the palace chiefs held a quiet burial for the disgraced king. No grand ceremony, no royal rites, just sorrow and the bitter taste of truth. And from the realm beyond, Chiamaka watched, finally at peace. And Chinello still roamed the village market as a mad woman. Her punishment was madness, one worse than death. God will and joy bloomed in their businesses, and her mother, living like a queen, God will and joy took very good care of her. And within a short time they were blessed with children, and Chiamaka's spirit was happy, and always watch over them.